All right, welcome back to, let's say, part two of my last video, which was about propagation of plumerias. So one thing I didn't discuss in that video, we were talking mainly about the seeds, but I was going to do another video. I've talked about this before, but I'm going to hit on it again. Cuttings, making a cutting from a plant. So few things to know about cuttings. The most part is once a plant gets big enough, gets mature, it's been growing for a while. The biggest way to know is, well, I'll just use this cutting for example. All right, here's a cutting. Now, this is a center cut, so, a mid cut. So we cut here and then we cut the top off. You already see it's starting to grow out. You can start see they almost start to get a little more woody looking. And that's what we're looking for. With newer, you never want to cut anything with new growth that's, I don't know how, I'll show examples, but that's real green. You don't try and do a cutting that's real green. It's not going to take. Maybe it will, just, you don't have good luck. You want something that's starting to get a little woody. You generally want about this long. You're looking about a foot long. I'm not saying we haven't had things short, like something break and we've got it to grow. Just saying, and generally, if you're going to make a full cut, do about 12 inches, if not a little longer. Because you want to remember, you're going to put, about that much into the ground, give or take. The biggest thing with a cutting like this, two things, is A, you want a little older growth like this. Like I said, you don't bright green growth, and anyone that has a plumeria, you know exactly that new tip growth during that season. You don't try and cut that out. Not saying if that wasn't at the end of one, you couldn't, but don't try and just cut a part that's all green. It's not going to work. It's going to die. So you want to get low enough to where you're going to get this more woody, just darker look. Now, generally when we cut, we also cut at an angle for the plant's sake. Sometimes after we do that, we'll cut this flat for the purpose of the cutting. We didn't do it with this one. It doesn't really matter. But for the plant, we try and cut it at a slant just so water, rain, you don't get, because you see this kind of starts indenting here and it'll hold water. All right, cuttings. The big thing about a cutting, not much to it. You cut it, you let it callus. Don't plant it right away. Again, not saying it doesn't work. We've had some where it broke off and we just stuck them in the ground and they started growing. But generally, what we're going to do is let this callus over, this harden up a little, a week or two. And you'll see, like I said, it'll start, it's obvious, from that white, milky, just super bright white flesh to a hardened callus like this. Once this is at this point, on this callus, all we do is we take a rooting hormone. Literally, we usually pour this into something separate so we're not contaminating this. But we'll take this, pour some into a jar, dip the tip into that, and then plant it in some dirt. Again, about this far in. That's all there is to it. Again, with that dirt might be a little damp. You might water it a little at first, but then you kind of just leave it. Let it sit and wait until you start to see something. Again, unlike this, but I'll try and get a little close. But there's a little green. This is where you'll start seeing those little nubs start to come out. That's when you know, all right, I'm getting some life. It's starting to happen. This one's actually been sitting longer than we intended, so it's started to grow. Again, this is this season cutting. I'll go over more other ways, like we do some cuttings pre-winter. Like if big plants were like, we don't want this giant, I'll put this giant thing away. We'll make big cuttings on that and put the cuttings away. Again, there's a way to do that for winterizing a cutting. But this is just the purpose is, if we're gonna bring a plant out, bring it back to life, and then make cuttings, nice woody, again, 12 inches around there, dip it in hormone, put it in a pot with dirt, make that soil a little moist, but again, you don't want a lot of wet soil until we start getting some roots, start seeing some activity, then we can start giving a little more water. Once it starts leafing out, then you go after it. Same rules apply as far as water and all that. Like I said, it's really not that difficult. You also want to watch for when you're cutting, just make sure they're not real wrinkled. You don't want to cut a plant that looks like it's been stressed, because the cutting's not going to make it. We've even found cuttings that we've brought from other places. Again, from Florida, for example, we've got cuttings from Florida, brought them here just because of the change in environment. Some cuttings didn't make it. Again, some plants are way more tolerant than others. It just depends. So woody, make a slice, let it callus, dip it in rooting hormone, put it in a pot. You know, make sure that's a little damp just to start with. Make sure just a little bit of moisture in that. But again, we're not trying to waterlog it down, because it's not going to be soaking up a lot. You got to wait for it to start rooting. When you start rooting, you start to see growth, then you can start giving a little water. A lot of these are trial and error. Again, this is what I specify, is some plants are way more tolerant than others. And again, that's trial and error. I can't sit here and name all these plants. There's so many different varieties, and some varieties just, again, your dwarf varieties are a lot more intolerant to trying to get cuttings and trying to root. So that's a big thing. This is the one thing I didn't talk about. The other thing that I didn't mention in the last video, which I should have, is flowering. A lot of people ask about flower. Seedling versus cutting. Again, we're going to go on a base rule of thumb here. Not always applies, this, again, some varieties, but the biggest thing you're going to find is your cuttings, you're always going to get roots. I mean, you're going to get flowers sooner than a seedling. Seedling, you can kind of gauge 3 to 5 years. That's why a lot of people are like, I don't want to get a seedling. I'd rather just get a cutting, because a lot of people don't want to put that time in. 3 to 5 years for a seedling. Now, again, we've had seedlings in 2 years start blooming. It's just, that's a rare case. Same with a cutting. We'll go cuttings. Cuttings, we usually do, I'd say 1 to 3 years. We've had them bloom that first year. Some people don't like to do that. Some people say cut off the inflow, because you need all the strength for the root system. Again, to each his own. You start to learn varieties, and you know some varieties are a little more tolerant. They can handle it. Other varieties, they get stressed out. They're going to go. So usually with a cutting, that first season, you probably, well, here's the other thing too, is if that branch you cut off, you know, flowered the year before, it's probably not going to flower. However, the biggest thing to remember is cuttings, you will most likely get flowers in 1 to 3 years versus 3 to 5 with a seedling. There are variations. Again, we've had cuttings flower that same year, or flower in 1 year. You know, I cut it off this season, I get it roots going. Next season after winter, it'll flower. We've had that happen. It's just, again, I don't want to give people this false hope to go, ooh, I'm going to get a flower next year. Every plant's different. How you treat it, how you fertilize it, all the factors of, you know, we've had a little more rainstorms this summer than, so some of our plants have done better with that natural rain, where some summers can be a little hotter. So again, cuttings, 1 to 3 years. Seedlings, 3 to 5 years. Again, I'm just being safe on that. We have had cuttings sooner than that. I mean, let me say that. We have had seedlings flower sooner than that. But again, that's kind of out of the realm of the ordinary. The ordinary is 3 to 5 years on the seedling, and then cuttings like 1 to 3 years. I was going to show too, just so people kind of know, and I'm going to make videos as we get to winter. We have some plants we're going to cut. We're deciding if we're going to cut them now or after. You can do both, so I'll make a video about that. But now I want to show just a couple, just to give people some ideas too, on the growth of some of the plants and just what you should expect as far as like a seedling. So give me 1 second, I'm gonna move the camera. I'll be right back with you. Okay, so real quick, just these are a great example of this season. So the crazy thing is you'll see these ones in these orange pots. These were planted in January, a seedling. However, the ones right next to them were planted in April. So a lot taller, still pretty skinny. You can see these are a little thicker on the base, but these have grown, I mean, from April versus January. Just wanted to give a show of this is what different varieties will do. You can also see the color difference. I believe these are Aztec Gold, and these we have no idea what they are. We just got the seeds. They're no ID. So again, quick thing I just want to show people is just so you kind of have an idea. January seed, April seed. So every variety can be a little different. And then I was going to show, oh, and then just real quick, just so people have an idea too. But then you see a difference is these were last seasons of a different variety. So you can see they're not that much bigger than those. And those are a last season. Just depends what type of variety you get. But sorry about the dogs running in there. So yeah, just a quick thing I wanted to show everybody. So again, thanks for joining me. Hope that answers some questions. Again, I enjoy getting the questions from people. Sorry for the one person that did ask me about the flowering, and I'm just getting back to that. So again, keep up the questions. I appreciate any likes that you can give me. Subscribe. I plan on doing a lot more of these. I really enjoy doing this. Obviously, we enjoy plumerias. Hopefully, my dog's not too distracting. She loves hunting lizards. So again, thanks for joining us on this video. Like, subscribe, shoot me questions about anything. I love making videos about questions that people give me. And I love just teaching anybody I can about this stuff. So once again, thanks for joining us today, and you have a great day.